Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads, they pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal, so we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. So we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today. Or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, no, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, is got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything is great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration. From torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision. So he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, oh, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And happy Monday. Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. For the first hour of our program, Congressman Ro Khanna is going to be with us today, taking your calls. Our telephone number, 202-808-9925. Congressman Khanna is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents the 17th District of California. By the way, in the second hour, Greg Palast is going to be with us. He's going to be talking about how Chris Kobach stole the election in Kansas. It's getting pretty weird out there. Lisa Graves will be with us at 10:30. She's a regular. She used to be a regular on our program. She's the director of the Center for Media and Democracy. She's once again a regular, I guess. And she wrote the memos that Brett Kavanaugh lied about in his Senate confirmations and is calling for his impeachment. And in our third hour, Dr. Crystal Fleming, Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies, is going to be at SUNY and the author of a new book, How to Be Less Stupid on Race. And we're going to be talking about everything from Colin Kaepernick to Serena Williams to the Dallas cop who killed this person in his apartment. So that's what's happening on our program today. Congressman Ro Khanna is with us. Congressman, welcome to the program. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got him on the wrong hybrid. There we go. Congressman, can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear me?
Just fine. Yeah, I'm sorry, I had the wrong button pushed.
No worries. Great to be back on.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. There are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up just to discuss with you real quickly as people are calling 202-808-9925 to get on and ask you questions if you'd like to ask Congressman Khanna anything. And the first is you co-authored a piece with Bernie Sanders that was published, I see it in Time magazine. It's titled, "It's Time to Get Billionaires Off of Welfare." It looks like the welfare you're talking about is food stamps and housing support and all the programs that we're giving to low-income people who happen to be working for Amazon and Walmart. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, here you have Amazon announcing that they're a trillion-dollar company, and they're still, some of the workers, $10, $11 an hour for work weeks. And so the taxpayers are basically subsidizing these employees who are working for multi-billion, multi-trillion-dollar companies. And it's not just Amazon, it's Walmart, it's fast food chains, it's retail companies. There was a study that showed it's about $150 billion a year that we're subsidizing employees who are working in multi-billion-dollar companies. So the hope is that the bill will tax these companies for that and incentivize them to raise their wages to at least $15 an hour, a livable wage.
If Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, is legislation like this viable? I mean, obviously right now, Paul Ryan would never bring it up for a vote or even let it out of committee.
You know, to be honest with you, I think there's going to be opposition, even some in our own party. I've never gotten more calls. I think the lobbyists were hard at work because people don't get after successful corporations. But we have a strong progressive group of folks who are going to push this. And to me, it's just common sense. If you're working hard and you're working in a company that's doing very well, you should be making a wage to be able to support your family.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I'm curious also your thoughts on this this new ethics complaint that has been filed against Judge Kavanaugh for basically lying about taking possession of Democratic memos when he was working in the Bush White House. All the revelations that are coming out that, the latest one, Jennifer Cohn tweeting, it was Kavanaugh who woke up George W. Bush in the middle of the night to have him sign legislation to keep the body of brain-dead Terry Schiavo alive against the wishes of her husband. It seems to me that if he was an Obama nominee with now 3 or 4 fairly clear perjury charges against him and refusing to talk about or refusing to own up to even his past statements about how Roe v. Wade is not settled law, that he would be toast. I mean, I don't understand why the New York Times and the Washington Post are basically saying, he's going to get confirmed.
Well, I think it's overly fair-mindedness. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, this is a person who was a partisan hack. I mean, he started his career going after Bill Clinton with lewd details about the whole Monica Lewinsky episode. I mean, it's someone who would work on a campaign as an opposition, not a jurist. And then he was a person in the Bush White House. He's not the type of person put on the Supreme Court. I mean, I disagreed with Antonin Scalia in every opinion, but you couldn't call Scalia just a campaign partisan hack. This is like elevating someone who worked in your war room on a campaign and making him a jurist. So I hope we'll continue to push a very, very strong case that this is unconscionable to confirm someone like this. Yeah.
Your phone, by the way, keeps fading out. I don't know if maybe you're walking around the room, if you could stand near the window.
I'm on a landline, so it's odd.
You're on a landline. That's so strange. It must be one that's a VoIP landline that's whatever. Anyhow, so let's pick up some phone calls here. We got a bunch of people on the line who want to talk to you. Laura in Chicago, listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, Congressman, I'm really, really concerned, with this op-ed from the senior official, and whatever you think about it, whether you think about it as treasonous or deep state or whatever, it just echoes what Woodward talked about in his book, and what people have said over and over again is that the president might actually be, incapable of doing his duties. And I'm wondering if it's 25th Amendment time and how that gets started.
Well, I share your concerns. I am concerned that the president doesn't understand a very basic part of American law, which is he has...
Wow, your phone just completely faded out there, Congressman. This is so strange. We'll have to try to reconnect at the bottom of the hour, but please repeat what you just said, because the first 2 words came through and then you faded completely out. Whoop, we just lost him. Okay, we'll get Congressman Khanna back on the line. I think his phone dying was it was its way of telling us, I'm going to die. This phone is going to go away. Anyhow, this is the essence of this new filing by the Democratic coalition. They allege that Kavanaugh perjured himself both in the current confirmation hearings as well as in 2004 and 2006. And they are asking Judge Merrick Garland, the chief judge of the D.C. Circuit. Now, I'm guessing that Garland will recuse himself. I mean, that just makes sense. But they're asking Garland to rule on whether or not this guy can be, the censured or perhaps even impeached. And there is a movement to impeach him. So we'll see where that goes. Congressman Khanna, you're back? Congressman Khanna on Hybrid 2?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's still breaking up a little bit.
Hopefully this will be fine. Anyway, the woman's caller, she made a great point, and the thing that the president doesn't understand is that he's not a person unto himself. He has obligations and responsibilities to the law, and the thing he keeps missing in his judgment and why he's not competent to do the job is he doesn't understand the constraints, and that we're a nation of law, and that he can't just do what he pleases, and that there's a constitutional system of checks and balances. So she's absolutely right. The Woodward book and these op-eds are showing his inability to understand that basic fact.
John in San Francisco, listening on AM 910, our iHeart radio station there. John, you're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Hi. I wanted to offer up a suggestion. President Obama's speech on Friday was brilliant, and it looked like he was doing it off the cuff and not from a text or a written teleprompter. And I'm wondering if there's some way to encourage him to do that repeatedly for the next 2 months, because we, as a party, the Democrats have, and I've called Tom and Congressman Pocan about this before last year, about the lack of messaging and branding by the Democratic Party, and it's getting better. But what Obama spoke about on Friday was brilliant, and it was very moving. And if we could pound that into the rest of the country for 2 months,
I agree
think it would go a
long
long ways.
Key takeaway from what Obama said that you think resonated?
I'm sorry?
What did you think resonated most about the president's speech?
Well, just the messaging about, we oppose Russians, we oppose Nazis. That's no, it's very simple. I mean, those were some of the brilliant moments, but the entire speech was so moving and uplifting. And he's really good at that. I mean, that's what got him elected. And I'm just hoping that we can encapsulate that speech at Urbana, Illinois, University of Illinois, and just repeat it, and let everyone in the country hear that, not just a few people. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. I mean, look, I worked for President Obama. I was in his administration. I think what I found effective about his speech is he painted the Republicans as the radicals who are doing something that's not common sense and out of the mainstream, and he made that point very, very simply, how far they've departed from what they used to stand for. I do know he was out in California, and I think he plans to be out in different parts of the country. He's probably still the most eloquent messenger we have for the party. We need others as well, but I agree with you about having him campaign a lot is only an asset for us.
Congressman Ro Khanna, the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, representing California's 17th District in the U.S. House of Representatives, taking your calls for the hour. It's 17 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You can tweet Congressman Khanna at Rep.Ro, R.O. Khanna, K-H-A-N-N-A, and his website, khanna.house.gov. And welcome back. Donna, watching us on YouTube Live. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna. Donna?
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear Donna.
Quite all right.
I was really frustrated when I called into Susan Collins' office. They don't take comments unless you live there. Is there any advice I can get to, besides just lying and giving him a false zip code when I call about rejecting Kavanaugh?
Well, Donna, first of all, thank you for speaking out and being active and contacting people like Susan Collins. I think that's the type of citizenship we need. These Senate offices and congressional offices, because of capacity, often can't respond to people outside their offices, but trust me, they get the message. And I think just being active on social media, active in writing, is everything you and other citizens can do. But you won't get a response if you're not in the state. If you know people in the state, certainly you can encourage them to speak out.
Jeff, watching on YouTube in St. Louis, Missouri. Jeff, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, Congressman Khanna. This weekend I saw a show with on Bill Maher. I saw Bill Maher's show, and he was talking about a movie called Active Measures. I don't know if anyone's heard about this yet, but it totally lays out the crime plot of the Trump family and how the Russians have been backing him since '86.
Well, Jeff, I think there's a lot that we don't know about the interactions between Trump, his family, and Russia. I am confident that Mueller is going to get to the bottom of that with his report, and I'm looking forward to reading that report. But I think that that's going to be a bombshell for many people when we read the details of all of those relationships and the interference that took place in this past election.
Congressman, we just have a minute to the break here. It's being reported that the Bush White House, or the Trump White House, has the power to withhold from Congress Mueller's report, because Mueller technically works for the executive branch. And they have now, at least somebody in the administration has come out and said that that's exactly what they're going to do. Whatever Mueller says, Congress is never going to see it. If they try to pull that little, skeezy game, how are you guys going to react?
To draw up articles of impeachment the next day. I mean, that's even Nancy or the leaders and some Republicans, I think, would think that that's precipitating a constitutional crisis. And it would, frankly, be evidence that the report has something damning. If I were the White House, I would release the report no matter what and think you have a better shot of fighting it on the merits than hiding it. Cover-ups almost never work in American politics.
Yeah. I was on Fox News over the weekend. It just always takes my breath away how effectively they are shilling for this guy. It's just remarkable. Congressman Ro Khanna, taking your calls. We'll be right back. You were going to say something, sir?
No, I just said it's amazing that they continue to defend him. I mean, it's as if it's evidence.
Yeah. Well, you've got the billionaire Rupert Murdoch and billionaire Donald Trump. It's kind of a club, I guess. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Khanna right after this. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing... Welcome back. Congressman Ro Khanna on the line with us, taking your calls. Sorry about the long music bed there. Mark in San Jose, California. Mark, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Ro. I had an idea for the Progressive Caucus. I was wondering if you could make a card for, like, voting rules with provisional ballots, then specific for each area, and then maybe add some of Obama's speech about Nazis or easy to reject, or, having the arm of the government go after your opponent. And then maybe a third thing might be to encourage owners and even employees on that Tuesday to cover for people to go to elections, things like that. So thank you for commenting on those things.
Well, Mark, I completely We need to figure out how to increase election day turnout, make it easier for people to vote. One idea similar to what you're saying about having employers pay for people or cover for people to go vote is to just have Election Day be a holiday. Bruce Ackerman at Yale has written about that, and I think that would go a long way, allowing people the day off to go vote, or at least a half a day off to go vote. I think the idea about having people fill out the same-day ballots and make sure those are counted makes sense. But I agree with you. We have to make it easier for people to vote in this country, and the Republicans are trying to do the exact opposite.
Elizabeth in Lowell, Massachusetts. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hello there. I am a 72-year-old retired registered nurse who's been a Democrat since I reached the age of reason. And I am very disappointed in the non-verbalization of the accomplishments of our last Democratic president. He himself didn't brag enough. I think what most people from a working class background like my own don't understand why he wasn't more aggressively combative and bragging about his means. This is what the Republicans do. And I think that the Democrats advised him not to. But we're in a new game now. The guy that got elected is a braggart and a liar, and we have to fight fire with fire. We're going into an election that is requiring automatic weapons with nothing. We're not going to win if we don't learn to play their game. Even on these talk shows.
Elizabeth, let's let Congressman Khanna respond to your call. We have just a minute to the break.
Well, look, Elizabeth, I love your passion, and we need you out on the campaign trail. But you're absolutely right. Obama could have gone into a little bit more detail about exactly what the Democrats did in 2008. Remember, when he came into office, we were losing. Our GDP was down 8.2%, negative 8.2% a quarter. We were losing 800,000 jobs every month. And we came in, the Obama administration and a Democratic Congress, and passed a stimulus of about $800 billion. It wasn't nearly enough. It could have probably been $1.8 trillion, but it's the only thing we could get because not a single Republican voted for it. And that's what saved the American economy. I mean, it's what took the stock market from 5,000 up to 18,000. It's what started having job losses turn into job gains, and GDP going from negative 8% to positive 2%. So, yes, we need to make that case and remind the American people of the turnaround that the Democrats engineered.
Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. He is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents the 17th District of California. His website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Khanna in just a moment. It's 27 minutes and 25 seconds past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back with Congressman Ro Khanna. Hang on. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal. So we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. But so we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and very just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today, or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, has got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything's great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration, from torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times, and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision, so he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you. Your media support group for We the People, the Thom Hartmann Program. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. And Gretchen in Chicago. You are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for taking my call. I keep hearing Trump use this term deep state, but isn't he just talking about the people he hired? These aren't Washington bureaucrats that he's having an issue. These are his people. And whoever this inside person, the anonymous, it seems like, he needs to clean his own house. It's not our problem. What do you think?
Congressman?
Gretchen, I think you're absolutely right. First of all, a lot of them are his political appointees. Secondly, even those that aren't his political appointees are career folks who have a distinguished record in public service and who are obligated to follow the law in the Constitution. So he is attacking people who have dedicated their lives to public service. No other president has ever done that because those folks are supposed to be apolitical, and the president has politicized it in a way that's really hurting American institutions.
Barbara in Los Angeles, listening on KPFK. Barbara, you're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Yeah, I just want to make a brief comment. Even though Donald Trump is a hothead and is very ignorant of history and is a supposedly poor businessman, he's very dangerous because he knows how to whip a crowd into a frenzy. And he's really brilliant at that. And I think considering him only as a one-faceted person is extremely dangerous. He really that's really a skill of his, and that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I don't think anyone should underestimate the demagoguery of Donald Trump. I mean, he beat 17 Republican candidates and beat Hillary Clinton, and he does it by divisive rhetoric and the age-old trick of getting people to blame others for their problems and to demonize the other. And so I agree with you that he's a formidable opponent, and it's going to take a message of really connecting with people and solving their problems and offering them aspirational vision to beat them.
Alan in Crown Point, Indiana. You're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Thank you, gentlemen. After years of negotiations with North Korea, they supposedly delivered a letter where they wanted the further negotiations and to follow up at least by 2020. What will you and your colleagues do to help support Donald Trump in the negotiations with North Korea? Thank you, sir.
Well, when the president decided to engage Kim Jong-un, I was one of the few Democrats who supported that. I actually disagreed with Senator Schumer. I said we should be engaging North Korea. Now, the way I think we ought to be engaging them is the way Bill Perry and George Shultz have said, which is we need to have systematic concessions and dialogue that's going to lead somewhere, such as looking at our joint military exercises, looking at what steps we can be taking in addition to asking for denuclearization. The problem with what Trump's approach has been, he had the photo op, and then since then there's been disengagement, and he's told Pompeo not to go there. What I would recommend to him is he get people like Bill Perry around him and George Shultz and have systematic dialogue and real negotiation, and he would have a lot of progressives supporting that.
Denise in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning, sirs. Thank you for great work that you do. What are the specific steps, Congressman, please, that are going to protect us from the great voter purge happening all over again. And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Denise. We've talked about this before on Tom's show, the voter purge in Ohio, where people were being taken off the rolls if they hadn't voted in one or two elections. There has been a systematic effort with voter ID laws to limit people coming to the polls. As recently as a couple of weeks ago in Georgia, fortunately, it didn't succeed, but there was an effort to shut down polling places in predominantly African-American areas. And you have a concerted effort to stop people from voting because many people understand the demographics of this country have changed, and they don't want some of these new folks voting. So this is as big a challenge for us as the voting rights original struggle was, and people like John Lewis who are in the Congress recognize that, and we're working with everything we can do to deal with that.
David in Park Hills, Missouri. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hello, Congressman. Thank you. And thank you, Tom, for your show. You're very informative. I'm 65, and I went to vote this last time a couple of months ago, and I said I wanted to vote independent. However, they wouldn't give me a Republican or a Democratic form. They had no independent form. And so I switched, and I said, oh, okay, I'll vote Democratic. The only thing they would have given me, and I voted against the right to work for less, was that one issue. But they wouldn't give me, and I thought being independent, I should have the right to vote for a Democrat or a Republican.
Well, I appreciate that, and this is one of the challenges of our primary system. We often have closed primaries where you have to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican almost a year before a primary in some states like New York before you can vote. I believe we need to change that. I believe if you're a declined estate or independent, you should be able to vote in the primary, and you should be able to go there the day off and vote. And that would really empower a lot of people like you to participate.
James in Spokane, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Yeah, a question, please. I'd like to remind all of our Democrats that when we don't hold these unscrupulous fools accountable at the earliest opportunity, we are complicit.
So that was your
question. Congressman, I'm thinking in a two-party system, the majority party is effectively a supermajority. Do you think legislation would pass through the Congress if we required the majority party to have a supermajority, vote? You know what I mean?
That's sort of what the filibuster was, isn't it, Congressman Khanna?
It is, and my concern with requiring a supermajority is when we do get a progressive majority in Congress, I don't want the Republicans stopping policies that have 80% approval, such as Medicare for all, making college tuition free or debt free, net neutrality. And I could see a scenario if we move to a 2/3 requirement that a few minority senators representing a very small percentage of the country could block progressive policy. So I'm not for having a supermajority requirement to make change.
Gary in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Thank you. My concern is that everybody is getting distracted by the multitude of issues, and the one issue that changes everything is a citizen's right to vote. Okay? It's not in the Constitution. If it was a bill was put together, a one-sentence bill, dare the Republicans to vote against it. Okay? Make it an issue right now in the for the upcoming election, and if not, it should be the first order of business after we retake Congress.
And the bill would just give every citizen the right to vote, you're saying, or what was the specific?
Yes, the one sentence. Every citizen has the right to vote. That would make illegal all of the caging, everything. Everything falls in place after that.
You know, I agree with you on that.
Oh, sorry.
That's originally what the Voting Rights Act is supposed to do, which the Supreme Court has gutted. The Voting Rights Act was making it clear that every citizen had a right to vote and that you could not put barriers on those rights to vote. Of course, the Supreme Court struck that down in a
5-4
decision. And what we need to do in Congress when we take it back is strengthen the Voting Rights Act and pass new legislation that would give people the right to vote and make it clear what type of tactics are being used to disenfranchise folks. I mean, the story about the 2016 election, yes, there was Russian interference, but what really cost the Democrats the election was the systematic shutting down of polling places in minority areas, the systematic turning away of minorities at polls. I mean, it was a concerted effort in some of these states to restrict the participation of African Americans and minority voters. And we need to be much more vocal about that as a Democratic Party.
We'll be back. It's coming up on 45 minutes past the hour, 15 minutes before the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Ro Khanna. He is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, one of the real progressive stars of the Democratic Party. He represents the 17th District of California. And you can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna, as in Representative, R-E-P, Ro Khanna. And his website is khanna.house.gov. It's 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls for Congressman Khanna right after this. And welcome back. Emma in Greenville, Mississippi. You are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, Tom, I know this is 2018, but I would like to talk about 2016 election. I usually vote in person, but 2016, I'm an elder lady. 2016, I had knee surgery, and I couldn't make it to the poll. So I called my county office to acquire an absentee ballot. And the person that I spoke to, I've been thinking about this a lot. The person I spoke to, she asked me my name, and she asked me how many ballots did I want sent to me. And that's been curious. I've been thinking about that a lot. How many ballots did I want sent to me? And I've been thinking the Republicans rely on absentee ballots. And we need to start looking into that more.
Do you think it's possible, Emma, that what she was asking is how many years or how many election cycles do you want absentee ballots? Do you, in other words, do you expect your surgery to permanently disable you? Do you want us to send you absentee ballots in the future? I mean, maybe you misunderstood what she meant.
No, for that election.
For that election? Wow.
Yes, you want to know how many ballots did I want. If I had said 100, she probably would have sent them to me.
Congressman Khanna, your thoughts?
Republicans count on those absentee ballots, and I see why.
Yeah. Okay. Congressman?
Well, ma'am, I am sure that there are cases of voter fraud that you're describing, but my bigger concern is the voter suppression and people not being allowed to vote. The example you give is not right, but I think that's more a minority case. I think the bigger problem is people not taking your phone call and not sending you an absentee ballot or systematically disenfranchising people in Democratic areas. So I think the Congress's priority and focus should really be on making sure every vote is counted first and that people aren't being disenfranchised.
We have, Congressman, the Supreme Court in 2001 in Bush v. Gore. Well, I guess it was December of 2000 in Bush v. Gore, ruled that there is no individual right to vote for the President of the United States in the Constitution. I think that's almost verbatim. And this was the lawsuit, of course, where George W. Bush said that if all the votes in Florida were counted, that the petitioner, George W. Bush, would suffer irreparable harm. That is a verbatim quote. With the Supreme Court taking that position, that we don't have a right to vote, and the Supreme Court taking that position again when they gutted the Voting Rights Act, at the same time that the right to vote, that phrase appears, I believe, 3 times in the Constitution and the various amendments. So it's entirely possible that if you had a Supreme Court that was more interested in the right to vote, they could have, quote, found the right to vote in the Constitution long ago. Does that mean that rather than dealing with this legislatively or judicially, we need to have a constitutional amendment to get around the Supreme Court?
I don't think it should come to that. But by the way, this is the way you framed that question. Some senators should be asking Kavanaugh his view on that issue. I think it's plain in the current Constitution that every American has a right to vote, and I think people would be appalled at the Supreme Court decision. I mean, obviously that was a jiu-jitsu to try to get George Bush to win, because we all know when every vote was recounted in Florida, Al Gore actually had won, and they had this false sense of states' rights controlling a presidential election.
Right.
But my view is that we need to appoint progressive and thoughtful justices who will actually find a common sense reading of the Constitution, which is that there should
Welcome back. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. Gary in Switzerland. Oh, my God. Gary, listening on TuneIn Radio, you are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for the work that you do. I think it's not only admirable, but rather necessary. But I've been thinking about something that I think is a problem and that I don't have a solution for, and it's about representation in Congress. And everybody talks about that there should be more women in Congress, more people of color in Congress, which I am certainly for. But it strikes me that the majority of Americans have absolutely no representation in Congress, and those are the people that earn under $100,000 a year. And I think, as I said, I don't have any solution for that, but I think it is something that maybe should be discussed, because I am sure that people who make over $100,000 a year have other views of life than the people who don't. And I'm curious to hear your opinion about that.
Sir, I think it's an excellent point, and I'll tell you why you're right. Because to run for Congress, one, you have to be able to raise millions of dollars, and two, you have to be able to take time off and support yourself while you're running a campaign. And so we've made it such that only people of a certain socioeconomic background are even able to run for Congress. I think we have to figure out how we get more people who are truly from the working class running. We have several of those candidates now this cycle. Let me tell you two things we could do. One, we can make sure through democracy dollars, a bill introduced with Russ Feingold that would give every voter $50 to spend on elections, and it would democratize the way we raise money. That would go a long way. And secondly, the Democratic Party needs to be really looking for people tied to their community who are working in their community to recruit them, and not just look at a person's fundraising potential in getting behind candidates. But you're absolutely right. The Congress, probably 99% of the Congress is comprised of people who've made over $100,000 in their past job, and it isn't representative from that perspective.
There's also the issue of people being able to make campaign contributions, since that seems to be the main thing that Congress responds to. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we've got to take that, let every voter become a donor, give every voter $50, make sure that every voter has a voice, and you'll see the composition of Congress changing. And some of the most inspiring candidates this cycle have been people with a working class background. Randy Bryce up in Wisconsin, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who of course famously was bartending before she won. So you're seeing new candidates emerge, and they bring a perspective of not being able to pay the rent, of understanding the concerns of their community. I think the caller makes a very fair point.
Jeremy in Woodland Hills, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes. Thank you for taking my call, Tom. Congressman, you made a comment a little while ago, and I think I don't want it to get lost, because I think this is a place where Democrats have really failed the country and failed us. And that is, we need to quit talking about Trump winning the election. he didn't win any election. Hillary had 3 million more votes. With all of the suppression of the vote, he didn't win. And by continuing to talk about, well, Trump won the election, we're normalizing this whole thing. We're normalizing him, and we are not taking the advantage of people being energized as a result of anger, because we should all be angered by what the Republicans did with the 2016 election and with Al Gore. Thank you.
Sir, I share your anger. I mean, I think obviously we need to point out that Donald Trump did lose the popular vote overwhelmingly, but as you point out and I pointed out earlier, there was a huge suppression of the vote in these battleground districts where a lot of people were not able to vote, and were those votes allowed, I think Hillary Clinton would have won some of those battleground states as well. The only place I would say is I do think even if we think that Donald Trump would have gotten 46, 47, 48%, I do think one important lesson for us to take away from the election is a lot of working class Americans felt things weren't working for them. The economy wasn't working for them. They weren't getting the pay raises they deserved. They didn't have economic opportunity, and that both parties, including the Democratic Party, need to have a better agenda in helping working class families, and that we have lost sight of that. I think that's an important thing for us to focus on and acknowledge moving forward.
It's the last 2 minutes of the hour. Jordan in Durham, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, Tom. It's Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thanks for taking my call. I know the last time I talked to Khanna, we talked about me being young, and I want to ask him, Congressman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
And I just want to talk to you about these demonstrations that they're doing and of Silent Sam. I just want to get your thoughts on that real quick.
Demonstrations on the Supreme Court? Which demonstrations?
The Silent Sam.
Silent Sam taking down the statue there in North Carolina.
Sure. Well, I think it's terrific that people are demonstrating for civil rights and making sure that we don't have symbols of our past that are hurtful or hateful, that we need to move beyond that. And I think young people in particular will help us mobilize in a way that removes statues that are harmful or hurtful and puts them in a museum where they belong.
Congressman, we have about a half a minute here to the end of the hour. Your thoughts on the coming week, what people should be doing and paying attention to?
Well, I appreciate it, Tom. I think we really need to be focused on the Supreme Court battle. This is not a done deal by any stretch. More details are leaking about how partisan Kavanaugh has been and how dishonest he has been. And we ought to make it our voices clearly heard on that. And then we need to be prepared again for the Republicans introducing a new tax bill that's going to help reduce capital gains and put more money in the pockets of their donors. And we need to stand up to that and continue to fight for working Americans. I will say very quickly, Tom, as I've been going around the country, I'm amazed how many listeners you have in every part of this country. And invariably in any state or any county I'm in, people will say, I'm hearing Thom Hartmann. So,
that's great.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Congressman.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
From you.
Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads, they pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal, so we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. So we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today. Or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, is got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything's great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration. From torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision. So he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Thom Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us is Greg Palast, the investigative journalist, author, filmmaker, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, gregpalast.com, his website. You can tweet him at Greg_Palast. We just had a fascinating and long conversation with Congressman Ro Khanna, the vice chair of the Progressive Caucus, Greg, about how the Republicans are basically lying about Judge Kavanaugh and how Judge Kavanaugh has been lying. And then also about we had several callers who were talking about how enraged they were that their vote had been suppressed or they'd been knocked off the voting roll in Midwestern states in the 2016 election. And in the backdrop of all this, of course, is there's a whole bunch of pieces to it, but you're specifically reporting on Chris Kobach in Kansas. So you want to bring us up to date on this?
Oh, yeah. Today, in fact, probably as we speak, there's going to be a hearing when an active citizen named Davis Hammett, and this guy, I'm going to hire him, man. What a great investigative reporter. He's demanding a recount of the primary vote where Chris Kobach supposedly won the gubernatorial primary in Kansas by 350 votes. Well, Kobach's minions in various counties decided that he was going to do what he usually does to Democrats, not count his Republican opponent, the sitting Governor Collier, in Collier's main area, which is Johnson County, which is a suburb of Kansas City, Kansas. There were 2,300 people forced to provisional ballots, and about half were not counted in that one county.
So he did a purge in the county of the home county of his opponent. He did a voter purge?
He did purges. He did. That's why a lot of people are showing up not getting ballots. He also did something else, which I hate to say was something that the California establishment did against Bernie Sanders in 2016. In Kansas, if you're not affiliated with a party, you can vote in the Republican primary. Those people were either sent away or told that they had to fill out provisional ballots, which were then rejected. It ain't true. The law says you can, register on the day as a Republican and vote.
Right.
And those independents were the ones who really couldn't stomach Kobach. He knew that. 2,300 votes in just that one county, another 2,300 probably about 10,000 provisional ballots across Kansas. And the other trick that they used, that Kobach used, is saying, oh, there were no signature matches on the absentee ballots sent in, the mail-in ballots in the primary. This is another trick, unfortunately, that was used on hundreds of thousands of voters in the 2016 Sanders-Clinton primary in California. So Kobach learns from some of the Democrats, too. I hate to say it, but they said signatures didn't match. Just over 100 in just that one single county in Kansas that's a Collier stronghold. They didn't reject a single ballot for mismatched signature in the Kobach stronghold in Wichita, whereas the Kansas City Collier area, they rejected them over 100 in just that one county. Now, understand what that means. By the way, there's no law in Kansas that says you may reject a ballot because of a signature. You know, if an American says, this is me, this is my ballot, I'm an American citizen, I'm voting, that's it, baby, in Kansas under the law. But Kobach decided he's his own law and told his county directors.
Because he's the Secretary of State.
Yeah, he's the Secretary of State to knock out mismatched signatures, but it was only happening in those Collier counties. So Chris Kobach did to his Republican opponent what his Republican opponent applauded when he did it against Democrats. So no tears for Collier, but tears for democracy in Kansas.
Remarkable. I have a question, a follow-up on that, but lest we forget, this is not new. In 1980, Paul Weyrich, the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, working on the Reagan campaign, was speaking to a group of Democrats in a church basement in Texas, a group of activist Republicans, Christian activists, fundamentalist Christian activist Republicans, said this.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome, good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Now, this has been the Republican mantra literally since 1980. They have been engaging in voter suppression. There's been virtually no discussion about it on the Democratic side, which I think is horrible. Now, Greg Palast, I understand that the Governor Collier of Kansas, the one who got bumped off by Chris Kobach, has come out and said this is wrong.
Well, Collier complained to Kobach during the count. And by the way, Chris Kobach was counting his own ballots, okay? He's
right.
Okay. And finally, he said, by the way, you violated your oath as an attorney. You violated the law as Secretary of State. Stop counting your own ballots, or not refusing. The main thing was refusing to count Collier's ballots. So Kobach just turned it over to a flunky. And by the way, he's in a tight race, Kobach, but he's not recusing himself from counting the votes in the November general election against the Democrat and Independent. So, you know, this is an old game. Collier, I have no sympathy for, the Republican sitting governor that Kobach beat, because Collier was right there applauding Kobach for saying voters ought to be required to prove that they're citizens, you know, making every voter, young voter, a suspect. So, you know, but it's not just Kansas. It's all over America. That's why I'm suing Kobach and, 25 of his GOP brethren.
Speaking of which, how's that lawsuit going?
Well, today, Mr. Kobach, if you're listening in, and I know he usually does, by the way, Mr. Kobach, you've got till 5 p.m. your time to cough up your papers, the names of the people you've purged off the voter rolls, and I'll share them with Mr. Collier, too. And I want those names by 5 p.m. or you'll see me in federal court. I should say, and here's some very good news, my attorney contacted me and said they're dropping like flies. Even Brian Kemp, who is running against Stacey Abrams for governor, he's the Secretary of State. He's removed 591,000 voters from the Georgia voter rolls. He's Secretary of State there. And he's bleached the voter rolls whiter than white for his run against Stacey Abrams, the African-American woman running against him. And I've demanded his purge list. And hours before he was going to have to face me in federal court, he said, I'll cough up the entire list. So we'll see if he's going to play games with that, but that's a big win. Colorado has said, you've got the list. They're coming in from all over the country as they're actually realizing that federal judges really are not going to be too kind to Jim Crow.
Do you think that is going to be changing as more and more right-wing federal judges are being appointed by Trump? I mean, they had, for the last 2 years of the Obama presidency, they basically didn't allow any federal judges to go on the bench, to the point that John Roberts said, wrote a letter to Paul Ryan saying this is a crisis for the federal judiciary. To Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell didn't care. He also suppressed, or held back a vote on Merrick Garland. So what's up with that? Is that going to be changing the nature of these kinds of decisions, do you think? Are you seeing any evidence of that?
Oh, yeah, I'm sick to my stomach about it. In fact, there's no question. I'm going to be very blunt. We're going to try to keep this out of the Supreme Court, my case against Kobach and these other guys. We're going to keep it to the details of what's happening in each state, because if Kavanaugh gets on the court, we're dead in the water. I'm very afraid of Kavanaugh and this current court. Kennedy was not great, but, he had some doubts about just unleashing Jim Crow on the voter rolls. You have an attorney general who's supposed to protect the voters, who actually said that the Voting Rights Act was gutted. He says we don't need any of it at all. That's Jeff Beauregard Sessions. I'm very, very afraid of the change in the federal bench. That's why I'm moving very quickly. And I'm not afraid of Republican judges. I mean, Republican judges have banged Chris Kobach over the head. I can't tell you how many times, telling him, by the way, sir, we have a democracy. But, he's been resisting. I'm just afraid of these new ultra-right guys that they are stuffing the benches with. Very, very dangerous.
Yeah, they're not Republicans. They're toadies for the billionaire class who are being propped up by the Federalist Society, which is funded by the billionaire class in large part. It's pretty amazing. Greg Palast, you can check out his website, gregpalast.com. His latest movie, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. You can watch it over on Amazon and other places. Greg, thanks so much for being with us today.
You're the best, Tom. Thank you.
Great talking with you. We'll be back with more of the news of the day, my take on it, and your thoughts on it right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
By the way, Donald Trump just extended the state of emergency that George W. Bush declared on 9/11 in order to consolidate more power in the executive office. And welcome back. Carolyn in North Carolina watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Carolyn, what's on your mind today?
Well, y'all were talking about the way they messed up the states, and they messed it up so bad, the county and where I live. My son ran for Congress this past time, and I couldn't even vote for him because that part of my county, but my brother and my daughter could. So they have messed up North Carolina. Terrible.
Is this from the gerrymandering you're talking about, Carolyn?
Yeah. I forget all those words.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, and it just broke my heart.
Remarkable.
It just broke my heart, but he did come in second on the playset, so he hadn't give up.
Yeah, well, that's a start. I mean, Abe Lincoln lost the first 5, I think, elections that he ran for. It takes time, you just keep at it. So
I'm behind him 100%. I'm proud of him.
Yeah, give him our very best. I'm proud of him too. And Carolyn, thank you for the call. Thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. Grant in Bellevue, Washington, listening on KBCS. Hey, Grant, what's on your mind today?
Up here in Washington, the weather has kind of shifted towards fall. It's so beautiful that I wanted to remind people to get out and get their hands in the dirt, plant a garden. It's the best way for many things, relaxation, then fight corporate greed, both at the same time.
Yeah, it's turning into fall here in Portland as well. What can you plant in what is it, September now? What can you plant in September? Is there something that has a really, really short growing season?
Well, all the beautiful greens and lettuce have pretty short growing seasons, and then when it actually goes to frost, we can bring them inside. and have them be window seal gardens.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you gardened your whole life, Grant?
No, but I've been involved in agriculture. I think that it would help our country a lot if more people got involved in agriculture, just on its namesake, so that we have more culture.
Well, not only that, the food is just spectacular. Louise has been bringing in onions and tomatoes and Swiss chard from our garden, from her garden, and it's just great stuff. I mean, you know, fresh food, literally fresh out of the garden. There's just nothing like it.
Oh, yeah, a couple weeks of eating out of your own garden, and then you eat in the grocery store, and you'll be appalled by the taste difference.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Grant, thanks a lot for the call.
I want to say, hey, everybody, love dirt.
Love dirt. Well, you know, there's another dimension of this, Grant. Not only does dirt provide life for us because plants are rooted in it, and everything we eat starts out as sunlight being converted into vegetable matter by plants. Even when we eat animals, we're eating plants secondarily because there's about 20 pounds of plant to make 1 pound of animal flesh. And I encourage people not to eat animals, or fish, but that's the case. But it's also one of the best ways to sink carbon out of the atmosphere. You know, living soil is really, really powerful stuff to fight climate change. Grant, thanks for the call. Very well said. It's a very, very good point. It's 20 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. I mentioned President Trump has just, it hurts to say that, Donald Trump has just extended the state of emergency under which we are living for another year. What this means is that the powers of the White House are expanded and the ability to have scrutiny over what they're doing is restricted. We'll be back. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. This new ethics complaint, this is extraordinary. The Democratic coalition has filed a lawsuit, a complaint, essentially, an ethics complaint, with the Washington, D.C. court, the D.C. Court of Appeals, which is the court on which Kavanaugh sits. And the chief judge of that court, the number one guy on that court, to whom Kavanaugh is subordinate, is Merrick Garland. So I'm guessing Merrick Garland will probably recuse himself, but we'll see. I think he'll do it for appearance sake. I'm not sure that there's a strong legal argument that he should recuse himself. But whether he does or not, the Democrats are saying this is just wrong. This man has committed perjury, Kavanaugh, that Brett Kavanaugh has lied to Congress. He lied to Congress in 2004. We now have the videotape of that. He lied to Congress in 2006. We have the videotape of that. He lied to Congress last week in a number of instances, particularly with regard to his testimony in 2004 and 2006. And then you've got Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, who are saying, have basically built their careers on being pro-choice Republicans. A vanishing breed, right? There's some pro-life Democrats. There's some pro-choice Republicans, and Collins and Murkowski have been among them. Interestingly, the only two. No, Joni Ernst is also a senator who's a Republican, but she's not pro-choice. So, in any case, these two women, in Republicans in the United States Senate, have literally built their careers on this. Steve Schmidt shouting out. Steve Schmidt was the guy, you'll recall, who ran the John McCain campaign. Republican operative, consultant, campaign manager. I'm not sure exactly what title he goes by these days. But he's speaking of Murkowski and Collins, he says they built their political career. By the way, Susan Collins' office has received over 3,000 coat hangers in the mail. I think this is fascinating. That, coat hangers, of course, hearkening back to the days when abortion was illegal, and occasionally women would try to, induce an abortion with an uncoiled coat hanger, and very often bleed out or kill themselves. This happened. Lewis Powell, the Supreme Court judge, Lewis Powell, the guy who authored the Powell Memo in 1971. Richard Nixon put him on the Supreme Court in '72. He authored and participated in the 1976 Buckley versus Vallejo decision when they said, yes, billionaires can own politicians, something that had been against the law basically from the founding of the Republic, or at least we had never said that they have the explicit right under the First Amendment. That was what Lewis Powell said. But there's an interesting little story to Lewis Powell's past. Lewis Powell, interestingly, was not a so-called pro-life or anti-abortion vote on the Supreme Court, and nobody really knew why. And back about 4 or 5 years ago when I was writing the book, The Crash of 2016, basically much of the book is about the Powell Memo and the Republican takeover of government and how that Republican takeover has morphed into a billionaire takeover of government and how the billionaires are milking us all dry and it's going to crash the system, thus the title Crash of 2016. And so as I was digging into this, I discovered this amazing story about Lewis Powell. Lewis Powell used to be a lawyer in, I believe it was in Richmond, Virginia, where he was like one of these Southern gentleman types, right? And although his principal clients were tobacco companies and wealthy white people, and big corporations. And he had this kid who worked for him. He was 19 or 20. He was a student. I believe he was a law student, and they both lived in the same town. His family knew Lewis Powell's family. And he came to Lewis Powell's office, which was in this, kind of big old house, right? Back in the day, this was like in the '60s, and came to Lewis Powell's office and all freaked out, and said, "My girlfriend just died. She's back at the house, dead, back in my apartment." And so Lewis Powell went to this kid's apartment, and sure enough, his girlfriend had died. She was dead on the bed. She had died from a self-induced illegal abortion. Actually, I'm not sure if it was self-induced, but she'd had an illegal abortion because all abortions were illegal. And she had bled out on this kid's bed. And so Lewis Powell took him down to the police station, got him basically a get-out-of-jail pass, and sort of covered the whole thing up, supervised the funeral for the girl, took care of the body, everything. And from that day forward, he was a reliable vote on the court for Roe v. Wade, for the legality of abortion. But anyhow, Steve Schmidt says, he's speaking of Collins and Murkowski, he says they built their political careers around the premise that they're tough and independent leaders who will defend Roe v. Wade. Turns out it was a con on the level of Trump University. In the end, they are the architects of the repeal of Roe v. Wade. They conned a lot of people for a long time, but like all cons, the day always comes when the curtain is pulled back. My objection to Collins and Murkowski isn't on the basis of a belief. It's on the basis of how dishonest and full of S they are. Collins and Murkowski's impending vote for Kavanaugh exposes them as Titanic frauds.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And one of our callers in the last hour to Congressman Conness, made the point that he had tried to call Collins' office and they wouldn't even take his call because he wasn't calling from Maine. We'll be back. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal. So we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. But so we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and very just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today. Or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, is got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything's great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration. From torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times, and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision, so he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Luxury. Here with you, and our old friend Lisa Graves is on the line. Lisa is the co-director of Documented Investigations, the former executive director of the Center for Media and Democracy when we used to have her on regularly. DocumentedInvestigations.org is her new group. The Lisa Graves is her Twitter handle. Lisa, welcome back.
Tom, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's great having you on. I want you to tell us about your new organization, but first, and please don't let me forget to get to that before we get off the air, but first, you wrote an op-ed titled, "I wrote some of the memos that Brett Kavanaugh lied to the Senate about. He should be impeached, not elevated." Can you explain?
Yes, thank you so much. I think this is a vitally important issue for people to be aware of because there's been a lot of news about Brett Kavanaugh, who is being nominated for a lifetime appointment on the U.S. Supreme Court. He's 52 years old, and he previously, before he became a federal judge, he previously worked in the White House counsel's office in the first term of George W. Bush, and he worked on judicial nominations. Back then, there were more than 4,000 documents that were stolen from Democratic staffers by a person who was the main counsel for the majority leader in the Senate.
That was Manny Miranda, wasn't it?
Yes, Manny Miranda, exactly right. And there was actually a Senate investigation about the theft of those documents. And so Brett Kavanaugh was asked back in 2004, a month after that report on investigation was released, whether he had seen any documents or any drafts or heard that there might be any such materials from Democratic staffers that was provided to him or information from those documents or more, and he said no, unequivocally. And he was asked more than 100 questions about this between the 2004 hearing and his 2006 hearing for the appellate bench for the D.C. Circuit. And then just this past week, as part of the hearing on his nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court, a small number of documents have been released, many, many more being held up by the Trump administration and by the former Bush, the Bush Library, basically, that show that, in fact, there was a great deal of communication between Manny Miranda and Brett Kavanaugh, and some of those communications from him and others talked about confidential information from Democrats, including excerpts of one of my pieces of research, as well as letters from Democrats involving Democrats, drafts, in addition to talk of spying and moles. And so I think this is a serious matter that requires a serious and real and full investigation about his statements to the United States Senate. I believe he lied. He was dishonest. He did not tell the complete truth, and I don't think he should be elevated. I think there's grounds for a serious investigation whether he should even be a federal judge.
Yeah, I completely agree. He lied in the two hearings, 2004, 2006, that elevated him to be a federal judge. It's a remarkable story, Lisa Graves. Tell us about DocumentedInvestigations.org.
Well, we are a watchdog group, and we are focused on the corporate influence on our democracy, including on our courts, but on all parts of our democratic society in which corporations are exerting undue influence. And so Documented allows me to do longer-term research, spend more of my time on research to help let people know more about the Koch brothers and other corporation CEOs and groups that are having an undue influence on our democracy, our environment, and our economy.
That is great. Please keep Sean and I up to date on what you're doing, and anytime you've got something hot or breaking, let us know. We'd love to get you back on the air, Lisa.
Oh, Oh, thank you so much, and it's so nice to talk to your listeners. Thank you for all the great work you do, letting people know more about what's happening in Congress, but also across the country.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Graves, documentedinvestigations.org is the website, and you can find her you can tweet her at the Lisa Graves, spelled just the way you'd expect. Let's pick up some phone calls here. It's been quite a day. Dave in Armstrong Creek, Wisconsin. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to bring up something I heard today. It was about Lisa Murkowski, and everybody's concentrating on her stance on Roe v. Wade, but I heard that a lot of her constituents are calling her about Mr. Kavanaugh's feelings about climate change.
Well, also, there's that and also the Native American issue.
Yes, and I don't know all the details on that, but that's something that we should all be talking about right now with hurricane season back. We've already had a bad one in Hawaii. There's another one moving in. We had just major flooding in southern Wisconsin here, and our governor, Scott Walker, is trying to scramble to get money from the federal government that he seems to hate so much.
Yeah.
But it should be something we should all be concerned with, and if we call our senators, bring that up, the issue of climate change and Kavanaugh's stance on that. So
here's the truly bizarre thing, Dave. The Trump administration and Donald on the campaign trail in his campaign to run for 2020 president are bragging about blue-collar construction jobs are back. And it's true. The blue-collar construction jobs are exploding right now and it's not unique to Trump. It's been happening for the last 4 years or so. And it turns out that the reason why is disaster repair. If you take out all the jobs that have been created rebuilding people's houses after major flooding events like you saw in Houston, or like, the one that's on its way to the Carolinas apparently right now, I think it's Hurricane Florence, and the wildfires in California, well, not just California, California, Oregon, Washington State, Idaho, just these extreme weather events that are being driven and exacerbated by climate change. Somebody's got to rebuild those places. And so, it's the old ad, every time a forest falls, GDP goes up. Every time there's an oil spill, GDP goes up because you've got to do all this repair work. It's a bizarre kind of non sequitur.
Yeah, it's happening all over. And I mentioned Wisconsin just recently,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really hears about that.
Yeah, and there's a huge demand now for people to rebuild these houses, redo the sheetrock, redo the electric, all that kind of thing. Dave, thanks a lot for the call. Great to hear from you. Mary in Chicago. Hey, Mary, what's up?
Hi. I called Colin's office, and they were very, very nice. Now, I didn't get hold of the main number. That was busy.
Right.
So I got hold of one of her other offices, and they were really nice about it. And it sounded to me like she didn't like that she didn't like abortion any better than I did.
Yeah.
And I explained that I was 77 and I know about the days before, and I didn't want to see them come back. And I also want to know from you. Are they going to be able to, I just wanted you to know that, but I also want to know from you.
Good on you.
Are they going to be able to stop his confirmation, being that they've got a suit, a court case against him? I mean, it seems to me you can't have both at the same time.
You can. There's nothing that can be done legally to put legal automatic brakes on this progress. And if Mitch McConnell decides that he's going to have the vote, and if he has successfully intimidated Collins or Murkowski, or if he has successfully intimidated, or the Republican Party has successfully intimidated Joe Manchin or Heidi Heitkamp or Claire McCaskill, then Brett Kavanaugh is going to sit on the Supreme Court. And if we can continue calling the Senate at 202-224-3121, and speak to these people, these five in particular, but every other senator too needs to be hearing from us that a man who is a serial liar, a man who wants to make abortion illegal, a man who has essentially lied about that, but he's lied about some really serious things now, repeatedly before Congress,
Right.
Has committed perjury. You know, Bill Clinton was impeached for committing perjury around a BJ. This is a whole much bigger deal. This has nothing to do with Brett Kavanaugh's personal life. We're not even talking about whether he has a gambling problem or why he had a $200,000 bill on his credit card that got paid off magically last year. You know, none of that stuff is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about his positions on the federal bench and the way that he would change the character and nature of this country for the next 30, 40 years if he's put on the Supreme Court. This guy's, I think, 53 years old. And this is a big deal. Mary, thank you for the call. Spot on. Spot on. Al in Oakland, California, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Al, we got about a minute here. It's a quick one.
All right. Thanks, Tom, for taking my call. You know, I'm at a loss here to understand why Obama is taking credit for an economy that he took over that had no direction.
You mean Trump is taking credit for it?
Trump, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trump is taking credit for an economy that had no direction but up, and blames Obama for everything. And when Obama defends himself, they say this is unprecedented. You know, and as much as Trump talks about him, you know, I'm really stunned at what's happening in really in America today. You know, with Trump taking over, and nobody's really talking about the economy that he did not create.
Yeah. I think the last time that a former president loudly and repeatedly spoke out against the guy who followed him was Teddy Roosevelt going after William Howard Taft because he wasn't progressive enough. You know, the Republican who followed Teddy Roosevelt and won the election. But, you know, so it's not unprecedented. There certainly is a precedent. And it was a Republican going after another Republican. But the reality is that the other precedent is that sitting presidents don't attack previous presidents. And Donald Trump obviously blew that one all to hell. Al, thanks for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
4 minutes from now, we're going to check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world with former Congressman Bob Ney. Stick around. And welcome back. Catstone, watching Free Speech TV in Coos Bay, Oregon. Am I saying that right, Catstone?
That's right.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
And I hope you don't get tired of hearing people say thank you for what you do.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's when it goes on and on and on that I start feeling like I'm Donald Trump in one of his cabinet meetings. You know, but anyhow, Chris Stone, what's on your mind today?
Well, thinking back to what Michael Moore said in the election, that if Donald Trump got elected, he would be the last president we ever had. And when Trump took away John Brennan's security clearance, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but when he took away the security clearances, that gave me a chill. And now he's extending this emergency situation. I'm thinking that he could, with the anonymous op-ed in the New York Times, thinking he could declare martial law. He can't find these people. He's thinking we're in trouble. The nation everything needs to stop. He shuts down the elections, and because he's moving, he wants to move, if he has the thought even to move it, to a dictatorship.
It will depend to a large extent on Congress and the federal courts. And this is one of the things that's the latter part of that, the federal courts, is what's so chilling about Trump going with Brett Kavanaugh as his nominee. As I've pointed out a million times or many times on this program. Brett Kavanaugh.
I'm really scared of him.
Yeah, Brett Kavanaugh's sales pitch to Donald Trump via the media was, put me on the Supreme Court and I'll make sure you don't go to jail. And, you know, Trump is picking his judge. And for the multiple trials that may end up before the Supreme Court, I mean, the Chief Justice, of course, would be John Roberts, presides over an impeachment hearing in the Senate. But you know, cases going to the Supreme Court can you know, well, there's a whole series of possible litigations that could end up before the Supreme Court around Trump. So, you know, can he be indicted? You know, it's things like that. And so I'm very concerned, Catstone. I don't know that Trump declaring a dictatorship is something we need to be too flipped out about, although he has blown up so many democratic norms so far.
I know.
it is very concerning. And then you've got, the billionaires who are firmly behind Trump. They may not like his rhetoric, and they keep asking him to dial back the tweets, but the tweets are what, energizes his base, which is increasingly basically his only support. And of course, Fox News, billionaire Rupert Murdoch supporting him via Fox News, something that's not going to go away as long as Rupert Murdoch is in charge.
Yeah, well, maybe the other thing is it has to all collapse before it can be rebuilt again.
That seems to be the case demonstrated by history. As much as I am discomfited by that, it's.
But I have a solution.
Okay.
It's this long term. The solution is to teach all our children to have good self-esteem, to think well of themselves, and eventually there will be no more problem, although we have to have good and bad and light and dark. But everyone needs good self-esteem, and if you have good self-esteem, you don't have to worry about what someone else does.
Yeah, absolutely true. Thank you, Kat Stone, for the call, and thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV there in Coos Bay, a great part of the state of Oregon. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Bob Ney will be with us with Talk Media News. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads, they pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
On the line with us, this report, by the way, brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book. On the line with us, Bob Ney, the author of Sideswiped. Congressman, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Tom.
So what's at the top of your hit parade with regard to what's in the news?
Well, there are all types of things, with Syria, et cetera. But I did want to turn and keep in the Mideast for a second here. But
sure.
The president has announced he's going to close the Palestine Liberation Organization mission in Washington, D.C. And that mission was deemed by Congress back in 1987 to forbid the PLO to have an office. But there are provisions for waivers, and that has been wavered all the way forward with Clinton, President Bush, President Bush's father, President Obama, but now it will be closed under the Trump administration, and they will be asked to leave.
This is not going to help any efforts to bring the Palestinians and the Israelis together for peace talks.
Yes, you just exactly mimicked exactly what my analysis of this. Nothing good can come from this. Now, people can say they're illegitimate. They can say whatever they want to say about it. This is advised and allowed for at least a mission for communication to be out there.
Right. Now, it's not even an embassy.
Right, and it's been there throughout presidents. It's been there for a long time. Now, I think there's two words that sums up what happened here, and that's John Bolton. And in fact, he is the one who has announced it in a speech to the Federalist Society. And his quote was, "The United States will use any means necessary to protect our citizens and those of our allies from unjust prosecution by this illegitimate court," because he's talking about the fact that the Palestinians had said that they felt there were some Israeli war crimes, is what they had spoke out about.
Are you talking about the International Criminal Court now? The PLO bringing cases there, and the Trump administration also talking about defunding, or at least the American funding, removing the American funding for the International Criminal Court. This is the tribunal that prosecuted Nazi war criminals.
Yes, it is. And the fact that, of course, Nikki Haley was going towards partial cutoff of money, which is used for refugee and humanitarian, and we know that they're cutting all of that off, and that was last week.
Wow.
Now the office is being closed, and Bolton's quote is, "The United States will always stand with our friend and ally, Israel." And he's basically defending in his speech today, saying the Trump administration will not keep the office open when the Palestinians refuse to step and start direct and meaningful negotiations with Israel. So what we have now said is we're going to cut off all the humanitarian aid. And again, not that anyone in their right mind would be promoting violence against Israel. Of course not. And there are people that do that and people that don't. But first the money was cut, and that goes towards refugees, food, medical attention, housing, everything under the sun.
Right.
And I've been to the West Bank, Tom, and I don't know if you've been over there in the West Bank, but it is tough living conditions even years back. So now this follows up again with the closure of the PLO office. This will not bring anybody towards any form of peace. In fact, this will absolutely incite a lot of problems.
Yeah. Terrible. What else is up, Bob?
Well, and then the Koch brothers were not happy with one super PAC. They have now created a second super PAC.
You mean one wasn't enough?
No, one's not enough because, again, they buy each other presidents for Christmas, so they need a little bit more money there. And the Americans for Prosperity, of course, one of the most conservative policy-focused groups of the Koch brothers, it's getting into the super PAC business itself. So they're creating another one, and that's called Americans for Prosperity Action, and that's a new tool. They say they want to make their mark larger. They actually quote Concerned Veterans for America Action Fund and the Libre. I haven't heard of that. Have you? Libre?
No.
Action?
I would guess it's a Hispanic group, but I just don't know.
Something, yes. Yeah. So they're going to aim towards that and then have that targeted purpose, somehow.
So the billionaires are extending and cementing their control over American politics, basically, is the bottom line here, right?
Right. Oh, exactly. And they're adding more money, obviously, into the system.
Yeah.
And the other one is a very fascinating study that we, are talking about today. And it's a study that was out of California, Berkeley. And what it talks about is the actual real impact of raising the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. So most states today, of course, have a minimum wage above the federal mark, and that was stopping at, $7.25 per hour for nearly a decade. Now, in some of the cities, the minimum wage has been doubled. We all know that. San Francisco, I think, was the first city to do it. And then, of course, Seattle has the $15 policy over the past several years. Now, the argument's been that's, killing the economy. So now, Tom, there's 10 large cities in about 7 states, and some smaller localities, but they're transitioning between $12 and $15 an hour for their minimum wage. Mm-hmm. So this report by University of California, Berkeley Center on Wage and Employment Dynamics, it's called CWED, is saying that at least in the city-level cases, this is doing nothing to stifle jobs. It's helping.
Yeah, I would think it would help, too, because what you're doing is you're pouring more money into the local economy. By raising the wages of the lowest paid people who spend all their money into the local economy. Excellent. Bob, thanks for that. I'm glad to hear it. Bob Ney with Talk Media News, the author of Sideswiped. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Great talking with you. We'll be back. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads, they pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal, so we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. So we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today. Or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, is got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything's great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration. From torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times, and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision, so he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Over on alternet.org, the top story is titled "The NFL's Ongoing Kaepernick Controversy Shows Much of White America is Still in Slave Patrol Mode." There's a long history of whites trashing blacks when they protest the systems whites have put in place to keep them down. I wrote that article. It just went up about an hour ago, just FYI. There's Dr. Crystal Fleming is writing not just about this, but also the whole Serena Williams thing and how to be less stupid about race and gender, basically. She's the Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies and Associate Faculty at the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at SUNY Stony Brook, and the author of a forthcoming book. It's coming out this week or next week, How to Be Less Stupid About Race, on racism, white supremacy, and the racial divide. Dr. Fleming, welcome to our program.
Hi, Tom. Thanks so much for having me.
So glad to have you with us. I'm in your book, Chapter 2 is titled "Listen to Black Women." Is there a tie in there to Serena? I'm sorry, I haven't had an opportunity yet to read your book. We just got a copy of it this morning.
Yeah, well, I can't say that I prophetically predicted what would happen in the women's final this past weekend. I definitely do mention Serena Williams briefly in the book. A huge fan. I did happen to actually be at Arthur Ashe this past Saturday, so I was present when the debacle unfolded, and it's something that my followers on Twitter know I've been writing about ever since, and I have an op-ed that will come out, shortly. But yeah, I mean, I think so much of what unfolded Saturday afternoon just really illustrated the intersections of racism and sexism in the lives of Black women, right? And in this case, an extremely high-profile Black woman. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
How do we, your book, the chapters, The Origins of Racial Stupidity, An Idiot's Guide to Critical Race Theory, on racial stupidity in the Obama era. I'm so looking forward to reading all this. How do, in particular, white people learn through this process. I'll just tell you a real quick story of my own, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I had this was maybe 3 or 4 months ago, a black caller who made a really, really brilliant point. And I said, oh, that was great. That was so articulate. And as soon as I got off that call, I thought, oh my God, I remembered the whole Joe Biden controversy, and I thought, is that a word I normally use, or did did my own racial prejudices just pop to the surface? And so over the next 3 or 4 days, whenever a white caller would make, or somebody who sounded like a white caller would make a really good point, I would go out of my way to say that was really articulate, just to see how it felt coming off my tongue. And I was telling Nate this a couple weeks ago. It became very, very clear to me that that's not a word that I typically use when I'm talking to white people. And so boom, Thom gets a lesson. Speak to that, and just generally how white people can help wake up to these issues.
I mean, I think that's a great example that you just shared, right? Because one of the things I emphasize in the book is it's impossible to move forward and make progress on these issues without a change in consciousness, and that requires, a willingness to look at our own behavior. And I include Black folks and people of color amongst those who also need to look at our own behavior, simply because of how internalized oppression can work and how we're all exposed to white supremacy simply by virtue of growing up and being socialized in a systemically racist and white supremacist society. So I think, your example of sort of catching yourself and realizing maybe, in retrospect, right, oh, wow, I used this word in a way that, maybe might be linked to prejudice, right, even though you wouldn't want to. So there's this way in which also, when we become aware of our socialization, we realize that we perpetuate behaviors against our own will, right? And so I think, there's Jane Elliott. I think you're probably familiar with this anti-racist educator. She's in her 80s now, I think, and she's the teacher who, right after the assassination of Martin Luther King, did this social experiment in her class, right, where she divided the class into brown-eyed versus blue-eyed kids, and then, tried to teach them about how stigma and racism and prejudice work. And one of the things she always says is that, even after decades of doing this work, of being both an anti-racist educator and, working on her own implication in the system, the work is still ongoing. Like, it doesn't stop, right? So what can white people do? I mean, I think at the very least, becoming more aware, particularly of what Black folks and Indigenous people and people of color live through and experience, and really amplifying and listening to the knowledge, right, that Black folks and people of color have about the way the system works. But I also talk about in the book that, consciousness raising is not enough, because we're also in this period where, sort of the politics of wokeness, right? Like, I'm so woke because, I can say that racism exists, right? Which is a very, like low level,
it's a low threshold, yeah.
Right. But a lot of people, want cookies for these very low level insights. And the reality is consciousness is not enough. We also have to, be very clear about the need to shift resources. Right. So shifting resources certainly around issues of racism and how people of color and Black folks have been and still are systemically denied, whether we're talking about economic, political, social resources, but also, linking that fight to the fight to shift resources to the poor, to working people, to exploited and marginalized folks more broadly. And that's also something I talk about in the book, right, which, these are the connections I know, Thom, that you also make, that one of the things that Martin Luther King talked about that gets erased is that he connected the fight against racism to the fight against poverty and capitalist exploitation and the fight against militarism and endless war.
Yeah, right? and in fact, those are major themes and throughout his life, but particularly in the last few years of his life. We have an administration right now, the Trump administration, that where Betsy DeVos in education is trying to radically cut funds for education. where we have a Supreme Court that asserted in the case where the Voting Rights Act was being litigated that even though this legislation passed the Congress back in the early 2000s by a 98-0 vote, we don't need it anymore because there's no more racial discrimination in America, essentially. It seems that so much of this is going backwards. And I still occasionally get a call from white people typically listening in red states who obviously watch a lot of Fox News, going, "What are these people still complaining?" That kind of stuff. How do we message this, and how do we wake up those people who aren't even interested in being woke?
Tom, that's a really difficult question because I have a couple of responses. On the one hand, I'd say that there's a contingent of folks in our society that have, there is no level of evidence that will convince them. This is actually something that, the scholar W.B. Du Bois had to reckon with in his own life. Du Bois thought for quite a long time that if he just had enough research to show that African Americans were being oppressed and discriminated against, right, even after the end or the abolition of slavery. He thought that if you had enough evidence that would be enough, right, to change our society for the better. And at a certain point, he realized that was simply not true. It was an illusion, that there are people in our society, you can show them endless studies, you can show them evidence of disparities. It doesn't matter. They are committed both rationally, because it's in their self-interest, and also emotionally to the system of white supremacy. And there's no evidence that you can show them that will say, hey, you know what, I'm wrong about this.
Yeah,
So
Donald Trump is still saying the Central Park Five should be put to death. After the guy confessed to the crime and they were acquitted by all the evidence.
Exactly.
You have. Forgive my interrupting, but we just have a minute or so left here.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson on Fox News, I believe it was last night, it came out and said, "How precisely is diversity our strength?" He says, "Since you made this our new national motto, please be specific as you explain it." Well, I thought our old national motto was "E pluribus unum," out of many one, but nonetheless. This is Fox News' position. Diversity is a weakness?
Yeah. It's shocking, but time to go back to something that you said. It's shocking and it's not shocking. But to go back to something you said earlier, it seems like we're going backwards in some very specific ways. This pattern of, some steps forward, some steps back, it's also, as I know you and many of your callers know, it's quintessentially American, right? Some people have called this sort of the next Reconstruction because we saw this. We saw this, in the aftermath of the Civil War. There was great hope, right, for what it meant to see the abolition of slavery. But what we saw was the rise and retrenchment of white supremacy. We saw the rise and establishment of Jim Crow, right? We saw all of these instances in our history where advances in civil rights and human rights have been met with resistance from those who think that diversity is a bad thing, who think that white supremacy and male supremacy and all of this are actually great things. And we have to reckon with the fact that these folks aren't going away. There's an intergenerational transmission of these values, these really terrible values that, would say that, white men should rule everything and we should rally behind that, and people of color and women shouldn't. We have to admit that is a core part of this country's history and ongoing legacy.
Yeah, and they also extend it to people who are not basically cisgendered. It's
of course. Yeah.
So this whole thing, this is quite remarkable. Dr. Crystal Fleming is the Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies and Associate Faculty Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at SUNY Stony Brook. Her new book coming out, How to Be Less Stupid About Race, on racism, white supremacy, and the racial divide. I am really looking forward to reading this book. You can tweet her at Always Heal the Self and Fleming PhD. Dr. Fleming, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. And her website, crystalfleming.com.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. Jeff in Portland, Oregon, listening on X-Ray FM. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks so much for taking my call. Great show as usual, and shout out to all your excellent guests today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as you often say, Tom, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and in my humble opinion, it's crucial we do that over the next 2 months in terms of A, rejecting Kavanaugh, and B, getting out the vote in November.
Yep.
And I have a question for you about Kavanaugh, but first I'd like to comment on the midterms. John Kerry was on one of the morning shows yesterday. May have been Fareed Zakaria, I'm not sure. But besides talking about how woeful our infrastructure is compared to countries like China, which he mentioned they have 300-mile-an-hour passenger trains now, Kerry also pointed out that elections are more about the people that don't vote as opposed to the ones that do. And Tom, that's why it's nice to see President Obama out there finally pushing Medicare for all.
Yep.
80, according to Dr. Margaret Flowers, 85% of Democrats and 52% of Republicans support Medicare for all. So, whether it's older white leaders like Senator Sanders and Warren or younger people of color, leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Stacey Abrams, or Andrew Gillum, we need to throw all our weight behind the people, the candidates, and the leaders that are going to energize and activate the Democratic base.
Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, the ones that embrace Medicare for all, living wages, union rights, fair trade, et cetera, et cetera. So regarding Kavanaugh, Tom, thanks for all your efforts to warn us about this guy. I haven't read Lisa Graves' article yet, but I do recommend to your listeners the David Brock piece you posted on your Twitter.
Yeah, that was absolutely breathtaking. I retweeted that. That was shocking what David Brock had to say. He used to hang out with Kavanaugh, and they did some really skeezy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is Brock himself, a Republican, talking about what a smear merchant and scummy operative, like along the lines of Roger Stone, that this Kavanaugh has been. And so my question to you, Tom, is besides everyone going all out to persuade the senators on the fence that you've mentioned today, what do you think about the idea of trying to get some prominent Democrats to say, hey, wait, for Merrick Garland, Mitch McTurtle made us wait a whole year for the 2016 elections to take place. We're asking for just 2 months for these midterm elections. You wanted the people to decide on Garland. We want the people to decide on Kavanaugh. What do you think about that kind of strategy, Tom?
I would completely agree with it, except it won't work because, Chuck Schumer doesn't run the Senate any longer. It's now run by Mitch McConnell, Mitch McTurtle, and he's going to push this thing through. He insists that by October 1st, when the Supreme Court meets for their new session, I believe it's October 1st. In any case, this fall, when the Supreme Court is back together, that Brett Kavanaugh is going to be on the court. And this is just, along with his buddy John Roberts, both of them worked on the Bush v. Gore lawsuit back in 2000 on behalf of George W. Bush to get the Supreme Court to overturn the election in Florida or block the recount of the election in Florida. So I don't know how to do that, Jeff, but I think messaging that is a really good and important thing, and you said it very well. Jeff, thanks a lot for the call, and thanks so much for listening to this X-Ray FM here in Portland, Oregon. We'll be back. It's 22 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, I don't think so. Back in just a second. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Sue in Ball, Louisiana. Hey, Sue, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM.
Hello?
Sue? Hey, Sue, you're on the air.
Oh, okay. Well, I was listening to the radio. I didn't hear myself come on. I am a small blue dot in a huge red state of Louisiana. And I post things on Facebook occasionally, and I post something about diversity on Facebook. And a friend, we have civil conversations that we have completely different political views. And I posted something about diversity, and he informed me that the word diversity was code for white genocide.
Well, that's something that a neo-Nazi would say.
Exactly.
That's breathtaking.
It did shock me.
Yeah.
It shocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because diversity was just code for, getting rid of the white race.
Well, and when did the color of our skin become the most important thing? I mean, I say that rhetorically because obviously it's
important.
Yeah, it's been the case since the founding of the republic, actually. Tragically.
Right.
But there is strength in diversity. That e pluribus unum is our national motto. I think it probably referred to national origin long before it did to racial diversity. But out of one, many. This is us. I mean, this is the United States of America. And if if there's more, if I end up living in, or my children or grandchildren end up living in a majority minority country, and obviously that's going to happen in the near future, I don't see why that changes things as long as everybody is embracing the same ethos, the same ideals of the Enlightenment that made the United States. What
do we all want? We all just want to live our lives and be happy and provide for our children, and we all have that in common.
Yes. And that's what we need to be emphasizing, and that's what we need to be pointing out. Sue, thanks for sharing that story with us. That's pretty shocking, but not absolutely surprising. Colin in Kirkland, Washington. Hey, Colin, you got a minute to the break here. What's up?
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to point out how dangerous Kavanaugh's view on the notion of a president not being subject to criminal indictments or criminal investigations. If this becomes the legal precedent of the country, how long until that gets transferred onto other elected or even appointed bureaucrats within government who are not subject to term limits?
Yeah, it's a defiance of the rule of law. And had the Supreme Court taken Kavanaugh's position in 74, I guess it was, or late 73, Richard Nixon would have served out his term.
Yeah. Wow.
And I mean, that's pretty bizarre stuff. So,
yeah, it just scares me to think that in the future, if this becomes precedent, it scares me to think that state governors, city mayors.
Yeah. Well, it also, Colin, what they're doing is saying we can pick and choose who we're going to prosecute, and that's dangerous too. That's a repudiation of the rule of law. Thank you, Colin, for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with your calls right after this. It's 27 and a half minutes past the hour. It's the first full week of the Fall Pledge Drive. We had a couple days last week, just a toe in the water, and on Thursday and Friday we did not hit our $10,000 a day goal. So we're already behind by about $4,000, as I recall. But so we need to raise $14,000 if we possibly can today, which means we need your help. More than usual. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. You can pledge online at freespeech.org. And with a $30 gift, you get a Free Speech TV mini kit. That's the bumper sticker and the button. Vote November 6th and vote Free Speech TV. With a $72 gift, you get my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. This is an illustrated book, but it is solid content. It is not dumbed down at all. Very readable, though, and very just a great read. With a $120 gift, you get the Vote Free Speech TV T-shirt kit, which is the button, the bumper sticker, plus the Vote Free Speech TV Made in the USA T-shirt. And $120 a gift can be $10 a month for the next year as well. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. That's the button, the bumper sticker, and a zip-up hooded sweatshirt made in the USA. Unlike the Trump paraphernalia, we actually use things made here. With a $360 gift, or $30 a month for a year, you get the Free Speech TV Vote Our Future pack. And this is the Vote Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt and the bumper sticker and the button. With a $480 gift, $40 a month, you get all of the above. You get everything I just mentioned, plus my book, We the People, A Call to Take Back America. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, excuse me. We lived in Washington too long, right? Come to Portland, and in fact, we've got a group of people coming today. Or tomorrow, I guess it is, right, Sean? And we're going to be, it's this week. It's this Friday, excuse me. We've got a bunch of people coming this Friday, and we're going to be getting together. They're going to be in here in the studio to watch the last hour of the show, and then we'll be going out to lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. And I invariably learn something. I meet some just extraordinary folks. So that's our meet and greet with a $1,000 gift to Free Speech TV. But the bottom line is, whatever the goodies are, whatever the incentives are, the biggest incentive should be keeping this program and this network going. We're all, basically under assault in various ways. There's this giant corporate media machine in the United States. The Sinclair Media, for example, is got a must-run session or series of promotions for the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court seat, where, don't worry, be happy, everything's great. And this is on, 70 or 100 radio stations or television stations, across the country. NPR is doing kind of milquetoast reporting. Nobody's talking about Brett Kavanaugh having, been at the nexus of so many just basically evil things during the Bush administration. From torture on. And, in fact, there was a piece in the New York Times this morning that said, Kavanaugh emerges from the hearings unscathed. Somehow, I think having demonstrated that this guy lied to Congress at least 3 or 4 times, and that he lied in these hearings, and that he doesn't think that Roe v. Wade is actually a properly decided decision, so he lied by implication to Murkowski and Collins. I don't think that's unscathed. But our media is like, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. I mean, we really need to have media voices that are willing to talk back, that are willing to cover stories that are typically not even covered, like the way that Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Has been doing so much extraordinary reporting on things that are happening outside our country, as well as what's happening inside our country. But so much of this just simply doesn't make it into the mainstream media. And a lot of the stories that we talk about here, in fact, are not stories that are covered by the mainstream media. And it's one of the reasons that, at least a lot of people tell me that they watch this program and other content here on Free Speech TV, is because they're getting not only the stuff that you'd see on mainstream media, but also a take on that and stuff that's not being covered by the mainstream media. This is a really important media platform, Free Speech TV. I mean, it's a really important one, and it needs to be strengthened. And the strengthening of it, the funding of it, comes from you. This is a nonprofit organization. It's supported by donations from its viewers. And, to make that donation, to help Free Speech TV stay alive and vital and, keep it going, please now call 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And you can go to freespeech.org, the website, and make your contributions online. It is so important to keep this show on the air, to keep the network on the air. This is a critical time. This is a critical time not just for Free Speech TV, it's a critical time for our nation, as you well know. And in that critical time, we need the voices that you hear on Free Speech TV and that you see there. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and let's pick up your phone calls here today. Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. That was a great interview you gave with the doctor regarding sports and Serena Williams, and I had to put my 2 cents in. And the bogus calls in that tennis match, in my view, was because of just days before she endorsed her support by way of Twitter of the new Nike commercials with Colin Kaepernick. Now, as we all know, that Mr. Trump, or can I say Mr. 45, has interjected himself numerous times with the kneeling during the national anthem and saying that you're disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the military, disrespecting the anthem and the nation, and those that do so must be penalized. Those that support those who take the knee must be penalized as well. So when I look back at the NFL games with the teams that have been pretty much robbed, and how should I say this, that they receive bogus calls and false accusations from officials, and they're the same teams that have taken the knee, it kind of makes you wonder, how far has Trump has gone to really turn this into a dictatorship? I mean, people may say that, oh, it's just a game. They stop make much of a big deal because it's just a game. It's more than just a game. This takes away the spirit of equal opportunity and fairness. And just because you stand up for what you know it's right, you're not going to be penalized in so many different ways because you're taking that stand, even if it means robbing you of, to say, a championship status that you worked so hard for.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I spent the weekend writing this op-ed piece for Alternet that just went up today. My original title for it was "The Slave Patrol Comes for Kaepernick," and I talk about how the one thing that's not in the article that I thought about this morning, I should have added it in, is Barbecue Barbie. This epidemic of white people calling the police on black people because they're having family picnics, or because they're trying to get into their own houses, or trying to get into their own cars, or jumping into a swimming pool. Those are the more microaggression types. But the focus of the article that I wrote is black people being murdered by white cops who are completely unaccountable. And when Colin Kaepernick stands up and says, or takes a knee, which is prayerful, he did it as a way of showing respect for the flag and the national anthem, by the way, because he used to be just sitting on the bench. When he took that knee,
he was counseled by a military veteran on that too.
Yeah, I quote the guy in the article. His name is Nate Boyer. And in fact, what Nate Boyer said, this is what he said about his conversation with Kaepernick. He said, soldiers take a knee in front of a fallen brother's grave, to show respect. When you're on patrol, we go into a security halt, we take a knee and we pull security. People take a knee to pray. So for me, it was common ground, at least, to start from. And Kaepernick loved that and said, yeah, spot on. This is what I'm going to do. And Trump, of course, is lying about it. Michael, thank you for the call. Trump and Pence, it's because he hates the flag. Come on, that's a load of BS. Rudy in Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, Rudy, what's on your mind? Thanks for listening to SiriusXM.
Hey, Tom, how you doing, man?
Good. What's on your mind?
I would like to think that I have a lot of, white people in my life, but, I come to understand that white America has a blind spot. And I can't quite put my finger on it because I'm not a white person, but there is a blind spot that white America have against minorities, other than people other than themselves. And the word that you use is poison, like the Tucker Carlson. When these guys push that diversity is something that's not productive to society.
Right.
Tom, this, I often call you and tell the audience that white America's at a crossroads, and there is at the point where the good white people or educated white people are going to have to make a decision on how they want their future.
Yeah.
Because what's happening in this country, it involves all of us. It involves everyone being conscious and being vocal enough and start talking, speaking against this. Because what Serena did this weekend, what the President Obama did, what Kaepernick is doing, these are all issues that involve all of us. And if we don't start fighting against this poison, because it's poison.
Yeah.
Telling poison, Tom.
When white people like Tucker Carlson look into the camera and tell millions and millions of white people that diversity is not strength and that this whole idea of diversity is a bad idea, blah-de-blah, that is so un-American. That is so antithetical to the values of the Enlightenment on which this country was founded. And yes, I realize we had slavery at the founding, but still. I'm sorry, Rudy.
No, it's not even American. It's against It's against humanity.
Amen.
Humanity.
Amen.
I mean, we are all on this earth together. We all breathe the same air. And for someone to say that, hey, someone is better, I mean, what is so supreme about taking a power and suppressing someone else? I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get how someone can say, hey, my gun and my Bible. How can a gun and a Bible?
This is being done out of fear, Rudy. That's what's going on. Fear is the main product that these folks sell. The folks who are encouraging racism.
God speaks against fear. If you believe in God, you should not fear.
Yeah.
And then it blows my mind.
Yeah.
How people say this.
Yeah, I agree. It was Jesus, fear not. Yeah, absolutely. Rudy, very well said. Thank you much for the call. I completely agree with your point and your perspective. James in Lindale, Texas. Hey, James, what's on your mind today?
Say something else, but I think I'm going to change it now after hearing what Rudy just said. I just don't understand, because you'll sit there on one hand and say it's all about us, but then as soon as I sit there and tell you I want to own guns, it's like, no, we can't have you in our group. And I just don't get it. I don't care for it. And that's what keeps.
I don't know what you're talking about, James. Can you explain that?
Because it's like you guys sit there and say how accepting you are of everybody else in the world.
Who is you guys, first of all?
I'll tell you yourself.
Okay.
You want to be so diverse. You're so diverse in all these people that you're willing to accept. But as soon as I tell you I want to own a gun or I want to own a silencer, oh, you're a cheater.
Why would
call me one day? That's what you sit there and call me one day.
What is your wanting to own a gun? First of all, I have no problem with you owning a gun if you're willing to accept responsibility for it, and it's not a weapon of war. But that said, what the hell does that have to do with race?
Because the girl who was in California, who was shot by the Mexican, you didn't say he had to be responsible for his gun, but you want me to be responsible.
Oh, come on, James. This is you're doing small bore, nya stuff. That's not even you're not. You're bigger than that kind of a conversation, James. You really are. Catherine in Burlington, Vermont. Hey, Catherine, what's up? You wanted to get back to Judge Kavanaugh?
Yes, I was hoping you would discuss. You said twice that he's done a lot of evil things. Could you discuss a few of those?
No, I haven't used the word evil to describe Judge Kavanaugh. What I have said is that he in 2004, when he was testifying before the Senate, and in 2006. In both cases, in 2004, he was trying to get a seat on the federal bench in the D.C. Circuit, and they put him on hold. And the hold crossed a congressional election, so they had to have a second hearing in 2006. And in both those hearings, he was asked if when he was in the Bush White House back in 2002, 3, 4, if during those years, I guess it was 2003, there was a whole strategy session that the Democrats in the United States Senate had, hundreds and hundreds of documents. They conducted much of this by email about how they were going to question judicial nominees, what they had on whom, what they thought the Republican strategy was going to be to get their people on the bench. And this guy, Manny Miranda, who was a Republican operative who worked for, I believe, Orrin Hatch. He worked for one of the Republicans on that committee. He stole these documents and handed them off to Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh, wow.
And Kavanaugh involved himself in conversations with these documents, and we now have those emails. They've just come out in the last few days. And in fact, Pat Leahy put them out last Thursday or last Wednesday during the hearings over the objections of the Republicans. So we now know that not only did Kavanaugh lie in 2004 and in 2006 in order to get himself on the federal court, which should actually, in my opinion, lead to his being impeached from that court. But he also lied this time in his response to Leahy. He continued to lie and say, I know nothing about it, even when presented with the emails. Actually, I think the emails themselves came out the day after his testimony, so he wasn't actually confronted with it. But the guy's clearly perjured himself, and he was a Republican hack. He was a right-wing hack when he was working in the Bush administration, trying to get more of these hardcore right-wing judges on the court. I think he's a train wreck. I think he's, for our country.
Yes, I do too.
So I'm just very concerned about it, Catherine. And there's some great reporting on this that you can find over at Daily Kos. I think there's a piece on alternate.org. They're all over the web. You can find these things, that are just actually copies of the memos that Kavanaugh was a part of talking about this. Catherine, thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And we'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Fair and only slightly unbalanced. And welcome back. Catherine in Pennville, New York. Am I saying that right, Catherine? Watching us on YouTube? Catherine? Okay, Catherine, you got to listen to your phone. Whoops, I was going to put her on hold and I dumped her. Catherine, call back. There's a couple of open lines right now. Brian in Portland, listening on X-Ray FM. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How's it going?
Good. What's up?
Just wanted to kind of point out the fact, something I noticed that was interesting. When Trump found out in the op-ed that something was written from a person inside his cabinet, the individuals standing behind him who were all in support of him and sort of jeering and clapping on were all national sheriffs, all brought together to meet with Trump.
Right.
Now, I read a few articles, and it seemed that they sort of omitted the fact that there were sheriffs there that were in support of him. And I just thought it was interesting that we talk a lot about the police state and the apparatus that's going up and the securities and whatnot. It clearly shows you that there's something being done behind the scenes with Trump and sheriffs to kind of drum up that support.
Agreed.
If martial law is enacted, I feel that there's already things going on. And at what point do we truly sound the alarm and say that this is a banana republic? This is a bought and paid for corporatocracy.
Yeah, and these guys are playing this really slick. I mean, this is the same reason why Scott Walker exempted the police union in Wisconsin when he busted the public unions. And it's why Republicans are always, the police union is hands off. We hate all unions except the police union. This is one of the big problems. And Brian, I think that your concern is well-founded. When you have the rise of autocrats, they almost always have with them the police state, or they create a police state to go along with them. And it's not a good thing. It's a very dangerous thing. It's a very unhealthy thing. And, we'll just have to see where it goes. Brian, thank you for the call. Alice in Los Angeles watching us on a Roku box. Hey, Alice, what's up on Free Speech TV?
Well, one of the things that bothers me continuously is that the religious right can say whatever they want to say. During Kavanaugh's hearings, one of the senators asked him about his religious faith with the same question that JFK had been asked before, but whether he would be obedient to the Vatican or to the Constitution.
Right.
And Kavanaugh did come back, and I would, of course, say that he would follow the Constitution. But he's a Jesuit product. And one of the famous or infamous teachings of the Jesuits is that you can tell the truth and lie at the same time by mental reservation. Now, all Kavanaugh has to say, and I'm sure he has said it because I watched him during these hearings, was, yes, I agree this, but then he'd put in his own head a but or an and until I get on the Supreme Court.
So is mental reservation a Jesuit version of lies of omission are fine, but lies of commission are a violation?
I think it comes out of that. I'm not sure of that part, but I do think that there are good Jesuits out there that might be listening and might have some method of influencing Kavanaugh to take himself off of the list.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I had a long talk with a Jesuit priest right after the new Pope came in about this war going on inside the Vatican, and it's really quite remarkable. I didn't grow up Catholic, so I don't know the cross currents, but it's fascinating stuff. Alex, thanks for the call, and thanks for watching the show there in Los Angeles on Free Speech TV via Roku. We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a quick heads up. I've got a piece up on Alternet. It's I don't have the alternate title. Hang on just a second. Here it is. It's the NFL's ongoing Kaepernick controversy shows much of white America is still in slave patrol mode. You might want to check it out. Lewis in Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Lewis, thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM. What's up?
Hey, good afternoon. Great subject, great exchange of conscientious minds.
Thank you.
Are you familiar with I think it was an expression that Martin Luther King used in the 60s, conscientious stupidity?
I have heard it. I didn't, but I don't know very much about it. Yeah.
Okay, conscientious stupidity looks like these, I wouldn't say exactly white, because they have many Cubans and a few blacks that wish that slavery was still in existence, helping them out as well. If you think about it, these people, they have decided that to make themselves highly stupid. From the lowest common educated one to the highest. I mean, it's nothing to do with intelligence or education anymore. It's like you volunteer to be conscientiously stupid.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on in America. How do you take a man like Donald Trump, who avoided being in the military, and yet all he has to do is put a few yahoos and hee-haw fans on the stadium calling USA, USA, while they have their health plan, taxation not going to them, and they are making ends meet. And Trump takes off in a helicopter or fancy plane, and they're still saying, yeah, you told them right, Donald.
Yeah.
And yet he's taking away everything they had.
Yeah,
so that's conscientious stupidity.
Yeah, it is, Lewis. Thank you for sharing that. I can't disagree at all. David in San Francisco, listening on AM 960. Hey, David, what's up?
Yeah, hey, Tom. With some of the books that you wrote years ago, seems to me you did some about like William Jennings Bryan and whatnot. And in Montana, weren't they like a very colonized state? I think there were super huge mining companies.
They were controlled by the Copper King, who I think his name was William Cooper, but I could be wrong. And he was literally buying senators. I mean, he, in fact, when he wanted to become, I may have his name wrong, but the guy who from Montana, he wanted to go to the U.S. Senate. And at that time, this is before the 17th Amendment was passed, so at that time the senators were appointed by the state legislature in Montana. And he went in and he told everybody, if you vote for me, I'll give you a $1,000 bill when you walk out of the chamber. And he stood outside with a pocket full of envelopes with $1,000 bills inside and handed them out to people who voted for him. They sent him to the Senate. The U.S. senators were so offended they refused to seat him, but that only lasted a few months, and then they let him in, and everything was just continued.
Well, the reason I bring this up, Citizens United apparently got doubled down on. Mnuchin, about a month and a half ago, changed the IRS laws so that they don't even need to track money anymore from another direction. And apparently the state of Montana, because of that history of Montana, state of Montana is suing the IRS because they're denying Montana the ability to track corporate theft. And so if you have any ability to check on this, apparently, it's already taken effect. Mnuchin did this change in a fiduciary way as opposed to it's a rules change.
Right, I get it. David, if you could find a good summary of that or any good information on that, would you please tweet it to me? I do read my Twitter feed every day.
I don't do Twitter too much. Look for Facebook, though. I'll see if I can shoot it that way.
Okay, if you can get it on our Facebook page. I read that less frequently, but I do read it regularly, and Louise reads it every day, so it'll get to us.
Good deal.
Thanks a lot, David. I'm sorry I don't have the details right at the tip of my tongue, but I've learned from painful experience not to jump into things that you don't know everything about. Bill in Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Bill, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's up?
Hi, thank you. I'm surprised that on the first day of the Kavanaugh hearing, it looked like Condi Rice was sitting directly behind him. And I could be wrong, but it looked like
she was brought in to replace the young woman who did the white power sign.
Yeah. So, I mean, she represents big oil, and during the Bush administration, they had a oil tanker named after her.
Yep.
And so, Kavanaugh represents big business and corporations and big oil. So there you have it. I mean, it's a very scary image.
Yeah, we're looking at, basically a corporate takeover of America. It's been ongoing since the 70s, and it's really picking up steam with this administration. Well said, Bill. Thanks a lot for the call. Let's see here, Virginia in Colfax, North Carolina. I hope you're getting ready for the storm.
Yes, I am. Hi, Tom. My name is Virginia, and I watch your show all the time, and I love it.
Thank you.
Mine is question is a little different. Where did you get as a white American, where did you get your fair-mindedness from? And I want to know about your parents. Did you get it from your parents?
Me personally? Absolutely. My parents were extraordinary people, and just straight out of the lower middle class, but didn't carry the prejudices that are typical with that. Was that the question, Virginia?
Yes, it is, and that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Keep up the good work. I love you.
Thank you, Virginia. It's great to hear from you. Yeah, my mother and father were both, very thoughtful people, and taught me not to judge other people. It just, the lessons my father taught me, I should write a book about. In any case, thanks so much for being with us today. We'll see, keep an eye on this global climate change caused or exacerbated storm. You got abnormally warm water in the Atlantic right now. It's the new normal, but it's abnormal in the historical record. And then the storm is probably going to stall out because the jet stream keeps stalling out because the ice is melting in the Arctic. And brought to you by ExxonMobil and Koch Industries. Anyhow, we'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.